Hi, Hazel. Welcome to the show.
Hi, happy to be here.
I'm so happy you're here and actually feeling very, very honored because I'm going to share with you something that I didn't share with you last time I saw you. But last time we met, we were at a spiritual event together. I think it was a 5 day silent retreat. And I have to say that generally in a room of women or in a room of people, I'm feeling very confident in myself. But then in walks this energy of Hazel Ortega. And I'm just looking at her and I'm like, what is it about this woman? There's something about this woman that just makes me kind of stand in myself and just watch in awe, like absolute mesmerization of this beautiful energy that walks into the room. And then after that, I pick up your book and I realize exactly what it is because you walk in with this wisdom, with this knowledge, with this knowing, and it almost seems like you've lived 100 lives in this short life that you've lived here on earth. And through this, I've actually wanted to message you and tell you, by the way, Hazel, I'm admiring you from afar. And I probably have stalked you a little bit on messages. But what's so amazing about it is you're so incredibly humble about your past. And you bring this gorgeous energy that is so incredibly attractive and so incredibly mesmerizing to everyone around you. And so before we begin, I want to say welcome to the show. And then I would love for you to share your story.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for saying what you just said. I appreciate that. And coming from you means a lot. So I am taking that in to my heart. Yeah, well, I share my story in my book about growing up poor. I grew up in one of the worst areas of Los Angeles near downtown LA in the 80s when gangs ruled the streets. I grew up with the world's deadliest gang. It's called Mara Salvatrucha. And even the president of the United States called that gang America's number one enemy
Hmm.
at the time. They were domestic terrorists. Okay. And these were my neighbors. This was the gang neighborhood that I lived in. And it was so shocking to live in warfare like that, where my neighbor would get angry and bring out a big machete and chase their brother or sister around until they caught them and stabbed them with this machete. They would, the gangs would have fights and they would have knives, and the Mara Salvatrucha would have big machetes.
Hmm.
So it was a strong visual. And then it gradually changed into drive-by shootings. And when I was just 12 years old, my best friend was killed by gang members while we were waiting for the bus. And this was a normal day. We were waiting for the bus, and like a normal day, gang members came and asked everybody what gang you were from. And everybody just ran away. And the next day, we found out that our very best friend was killed.
Hmm.
And the thing about that, Sherry, is that I don't remember anybody checking in to see how we were doing.
Right.
It was like another one bites the dust,
Hmm.
right? Because so many people were being killed at that time. I mean, I lived near Echo Park. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but a lot of movies are filmed near there, really close to Hollywood. And it has a lake, and bodies used to be fished out of that lake.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it's a very, very dangerous neighborhood. And then by the time I was born, my parents were already separated. Both of them immigrants from Mexico, did not speak English, but they were teenagers when they met and had me. So they were young. And by the time, that I was born, they were separated. So that was really tough in itself. And then my mom married and divorced many times during my youth. And my dad never remarried and never had any more kids. I'm his only daughter.
Hmm.
My mom had 7 kids with many different husbands. And that manifested itself in a lot of issues for me as an adult, because I felt that I learned that people can love you, but they can leave you.
Hmm.
And so then love was not safe for me
Hmm.
as an adult. And it manifested in broken relationships, a lot of upset. I'm divorced. and not having any joy in my life. I even was afraid that my sisters would leave me.
Mm.
And I was manifesting all of that to the point that I even had one sister stop talking to me. I had a cousin stop talking to me. My uncle stopped talking to me. Friends stopped talking to me. And I manifested what I was deathly afraid of.
Mm.
Yeah, that was tough growing up in those circumstances.
Mm. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing. And I so honor you for sharing to the world through your book, which is incredible. And if anyone hasn't read it, I strongly, strongly recommend that you go out and do, because this is probably one of the most incredible books I've read. First of all, because I know the author personally. And second of all, because you are proof, Hazel, that you are not a victim of your circumstance if you decide that you don't want to be. As I read through this book, you went into much, much greater detail with all the other things that have happened in your life. From, I think I probably read the first chapter to my kids. I have a 14-year-old and a 13-year-old daughter, and I read it to them because I wanted to explain to them, like, okay, this lady, she's amazing. I want to show you all of the things that she does, because not only is she a successful businesswoman, but the amount of contribution that she does to the world, the amount that she gives back is next level. It's past anything else that I've ever seen. And in your opening chapter, you explain and describe remembering that your father had, I think, dropped you out of the car. So you were this tiny infant newborn. Your parents went out to party. They left you in the car. Somebody grabbed a sweater, and there you go, tumbling outside of this car. And then it just goes on and on. And as soon as I felt like, okay, I got the worst of it, then something else came, and then something else came. And what's so crazy about that is most of us would come out of this environment feeling like there is nothing else for them. But instead, you found courage and you found a way to really rewrite your story. And I've taken down what I thought were some of the golden nuggets from your book that maybe we'll unpack in just a moment. But I think always my question and my level of curiosity is why? Like, why did you not accept your circumstance? And why did you want to find something better for yourself, that higher version of yourself?
Well, first I want to say I got a great imagery of you reading to your kids my story. That's so great. That's wonderful. And parents should be sharing stories like that with their kids. What made me want more was changing my environment.
Mm,
When I was in the environment, I just thought that that's the way life was,
right.
and that I was destined for a life of struggle.
Mm,
And with those two parents and those examples that I had, I was not aspiring to anything. I didn't even plan to have a high school diploma.
mm,
I just was in victim mode. Life was just happening to me.
right.
In the book, I write about Groundhog Day.
Right.
Like every day looked like the next day, like was going to be exactly the same as the day before. And there was no reason why anything would be any different. And I lived my life like that for 36 years,
Right.
struggling, barely getting by. My book is called From Bounce Checks to Private Jets. But I can't even tell you that I wasn't, people say you live paycheck to paycheck, but I was actually below paycheck, because by the time the check came, I was negative in my bank account.
Mm,
Right. So I got paid on a Friday, but I start writing checks on Wednesday.
right.
And I was already overdrawn by Friday when my paycheck hit the bank account. So what ended up happening, I was living like this, just thinking that that's the way it's supposed to be for me.
Right.
And nobody around me was doing any better than me. So I thought I was doing pretty good. I had a job, I was getting by. And by this time I had a family, and I got my education, and that started changing my mindset. And changing my pond was what I would say the first thing that made me wonder and want more for
Mm,
myself. And changing my pond, what was like having a job where I was surrounded by lawyers and judges, and I wasn't in trouble, you know. So I got a job while I was in high school. It was meant to keep at-risk kids off the streets.
mm,
And my first job was they assigned me to a judge, a woman judge.
mm,
And she asked me what college I was going to go to. And I told her, I'm not going to college. I'm not even finishing high school.
mm,
And she told me, you don't have to go to college now. Don't think about that, but you should at least finish high school. It says a lot about people that finish what they start.
Mm.
And so I admired her and I saw her as somebody superior to me. She's my boss. She's successful, and that had weight. And so I paid attention. My mom used to always tell me, you value opinions from who it comes from, you
Mm.
know. And so she's telling me this, and so I look into that, and I go to school, and I tell my counselor, who turns out to be my truancy counselor, that I want to finish school, and he helped me as much as he could. Some teachers didn't allow me to finish school. They said, well, you haven't been here all year. Why do you think that you deserve to graduate? It's not fair to the rest of the kids in the class. Even though I made up all of the missing assignments, there's some people that live by life is, you know, it's not fair for you. And I'm like, I didn't know how to articulate it and say, yeah, it's not fair for me that that we're on welfare. It's not fair for me that, you know, my 3 dads left.
Mm.
You know, that's not fair. It's not fair that my 12-year-old best friend was killed. You know, I don't, you know, I don't have any freedom at home because I live in such a dangerous neighborhood that my mom doesn't let me go anywhere. We live in our whole existence was a 10-block radius. I never left. We never went anywhere. We didn't have money for Magic Mountain, Disneyland. We didn't have any money. So, but anyway, this teacher was like, teachers were like, it's not fair to the other students that you get to come in here and, you know, and I'm going to pass you.
Mm.
So I didn't graduate from high school, but I did. I was farther advanced than I would have been if I had not tried to finish all my classes and complete. So I started working like most people. You get a job, not because it's your dream job, but it's because your cousin works there or
Right.
somebody tells you there's a job opening there. And I started working now from the courthouse. I now had experience. I actually was placed at a workers' compensation courthouse.
Mm.
Then I changed jobs to a workers' compensation law firm. And there, again, I changed my pond. Now I'm being exposed to attorneys that are very successful, that are walking around in hand painted ties. One day I picked up a fax. Somebody sent out a loan application, a credit application, and I picked up the fax and it said that his annual salary was $7 million.
Hmm.
Yes. And so from that moment forward, I was like, every attorney here makes $7 million. I make $15 an hour. They must be looking down on me, like, you know, this, you know, she's nobody. And that allowed me also to start to expand my mind about what's possible.
Mm.
Then suddenly, I became an injured worker. I developed nerve damage in my wrist, in my elbows, and in my neck.
Mm-hmm.
I was 26 by now. I was married. I had 3 kids, and this injury happened. The attorney that I worked for told me that I should go back to school. And I told him that I didn't want to go back to school. And he encouraged me the entire time to go back to school, even though it was going to be difficult. I had 3 kids. I was married, so I had like 4 kids at home. And I had this full-time job. So I changed my environment, and now my new pond that I'm in is with people who are going to school to better their lives through education. And now I'm in this pond,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you know what? Let me digress because I didn't say the story that my mom, you know, my mom shot and killed her boyfriend
Mm-hmm.
when I was just 22 years old. So there was violence all around in the neighborhood and violence even inside my own home. And when my mom killed her boyfriend, she was pregnant with her 7th child, and she had a 1-year-old still living at home with her. And she had a 9-year-old and a 1-year-old, and she was pregnant. The rest of us were living on our own.
Mm-hmm.
We're adults. And when she had that incident happen, she didn't want to turn herself in, so she fled. She didn't want to have the baby in jail, and she became a fugitive for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And during those 5 years, we went through a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But after the 5 years, she went to prison, and those 2 little kids came to live with me. and they are now 28 and 30 years old. And I raised them. I was their sister mom throughout that entire time from 4 and 6. I wouldn't even say I'm still doing it now. You never stop. So it was really difficult to be in school, be a full-time mom, full-time employee, and I had to have responsibilities to take care of my mom as well.
Right.
My mom was in prison, and we would visit her once a month, and we would accept all of her collect calls, write to her. It was really important for her to have for a relationship with my brothers. She was very valuable. She loved us very much. She made a terrible mistake, but she was still contributing to us. So I
Mm.
made sure that we had that connection with her, and it took something, right?
Right.
So yeah, so I changing my pond. People always tell me, Sherry, you were a big fish in a small pond.
Right.
And I tell them, no, a fish can't grow big in a small pond. You have to change your pond,
Yes.
right? And that's one of the things that I did and keep doing. So right now, I belong to entrepreneur organization. It's called EO.
Mhm.
It's for people that earn 7 figures or more. And then there's another organization that's for people that earn $15 million or more. And so I keep finding different ponds,
Mhm.
right? I changed my environment. So that was the first thing, is that I changed my environment from being in groundhog mode to being in possibility. What are other people doing?
Right.
That would be a tip if I had for anybody, is to change your environment.
Right. Wow, that's so powerful. And I couldn't agree more. I think that's where it has to start. And it becomes tricky because you're leaving people behind, and oftentimes there's an emotional attachment to that and just a sense of obligation or responsibility that you have around those particular people. But what happens is when we continue to spend time with people who are not serving us or people who are keeping us small, we don't have a new target. We don't have social proof that something else can be better for us. And I think when you had gone to work, I remember you mentioned this part in your book, you had gone to work, and now you made me cry every time you talked about your angel boss, but you had this boss who encouraged you to go out and get a degree. And I think at first you were trying to just trick him by telling him that you had signed up for college but not really attending, and then he started asking you about what you were learning, and then you had to go and sit in class. And so slowly you started to get into that environment where education now, and I know you're a person who values personal development and constant growth, but that became, I think, for you a central pillar to what maybe broke you out of that little pond that you were in at the moment. Could you expand a little bit on that, and just that power of influence that you had from a mentor who really held you accountable to things?
Oh, mentors. The second thing I would say to everybody is, yeah, have a mentor. Have somebody that sees something in you that you don't see in yourself.
Right.
Uh, I had many mentors. As a matter of fact, I call them pushy angels, right? And so in retrospect, right, at the time, they're making suggestions for you, and you don't like what they're telling you.
Mhm.
They might tell you how to work out, you
Mhm.
know, they might tell you how to diet. And you don't like that because, if I wanted to be skinny, I'd be doing it. If I wanted, I had an attitude about it that way.
Mhm.
But in retrospect, I see them now as pushing angels. So in my life, people tell me, if you made it with your circumstances, anybody can make it. And I say, that's not true, because in my circumstances, I had a certain set of people that were in my life.
Mhm.
I had my fourth grade teacher who, when who encouraged us in the classroom to write a book. I
Mhm.
wrote a book when I was in the fourth grade, and she entered all the books into Young Authors of America,
Mhm.
and I won in the fourth grade.
Wow.
Yes, and when the time came to get the award, my mom didn't let me go pick up my award, and the teacher came to my house and spoke to my mom in Spanish and told her the importance of me being there to receive my award.
Mm.
My mom said to the teacher, you should have never submitted the book. You're giving me a lot of problems. I have 4 other daughters. I don't have money for gas. I don't have money for food to go spend over there. This is a very big inconvenience for me. And the teacher told my mom, I'll take her. You don't have to. you don't have to do anything. And then my mom allowed her to take me to get my award.
Mm.
So she was like my first like a pushy angel. Like she had us write the book. Then another teacher who told me that I should be student council president in the fifth grade. I also had another teacher who told me that I should be in acting classes, and I joined the drama class in school, and I was the hit in all of our plays. However, whenever there was a play in the evening, I could never do it because my mom wouldn't allow me, because she didn't have the time to take me to school and for me to be in the plays.
Right.
I also was in orchestra. I played the viola, but then when it came to do our performance, we couldn't go. My sister and I couldn't go because my mom, it would take something for her to get in the car, get all the kids in the car and go. And she wasn't supportive in that way. She was very supportive in a lot of other ways, but that particular thing would take too much for her. So all these teachers became my what I call pushy angels. And then as adult, my boss, when I got my AA degree, he came to me to my desk and said, "Okay, so what's next?" And I said, "Oh, I'm good. I just wanted to be a well-rounded person, and I can see myself working for you for the rest of my life."
Wow.
And it was the truth. My vision at the moment was to work for him until I retired,
Mm.
the end of my life.
Mm.
And I was only earning $15 an hour.
Right.
And he told me, "Oh no, if you're going to be a professional, you better think about what you want to do." And I went home and I told my husband, "No, you won't believe this man. Now he's telling me I have to keep going." Yeah, best thing that ever happened is to have a mentor, somebody that reminds you of what you said you wanted.
Right.
Yeah, so like, why did you say you wanted to have this, this athletic body, but then you're putting a donut in your mouth
Right.
and you didn't go to the gym all week,
Right.
or you said you wanted to fall in love, but yet you're dating multiple people, you're cheating, whatever it is, somebody to call you out. That's really important.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's really pushing us outside our comfort zone, right? And so, Hazel, for you, and you described this in great detail in your book, you had all of these different situations with your mom, these different experiences that really should have made you hate her, right? I mean, most people in your position would have had so much resentment towards her, and maybe perhaps even the trajectory of their life would have turned out completely different. So she married and remarried several times, and there were many moments where she didn't allow you to do certain things or didn't show up for certain things. And in the end, you took in your siblings also, and they became your responsibility. And so I'm so curious, why is it that you foster so much love? And just knowing you, and like I said, like meeting you in person and having you in the room, it's so clear you exude this gorgeous light of love. But why is it that you chose not to resent your mom?
I did resent my mom for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
When she was a fugitive, I got married and she couldn't be there. And my dad too, right? So neither one of them could be at my wedding. And there was a big missing. And a lot of people ask me, "Where are your parents at?" And I call my mom and I tell her, like, "Why did you choose my dad? Why did you choose that guy to be my dad? Like, didn't you have any brains?" And then I would call her out on all her problems, all of her bad decisions. But as I became older and wiser, I developed compassion
Mm.
and empathy.
Mm.
And so, of course, somebody with her background would do what she did,
Right.
right? And I stopped expecting that people are going to act or be like me or do what I would do because they didn't do what I did. They didn't go through what I did.
Mm.
And so that gave me a lot of freedom when I stopped having expectations and started being
Mm.
with who they are and who they're not.
Yeah.
So I started loving my mom for who she is and who she's not, my dad for who he was and who he wasn't. And I love them till the end. Um, I think that's what made the biggest difference is compassion. I stopped fighting with my sisters also. Remember, I told you I was fist fighting with them. I stopped fighting with them. I started listening to them and having compassion for them. Even though I know I was triggering them, I used to always trigger them. I was a naughty girl, a naughty lady. I was judgmental. I was critical. And then I got an education and I thought like, I know better. I'm educated. I'm a psychologist. And what you're doing with your child is going to scar them forever. I used to be that way. And now I'm not that way. Now I'm like, how can I support you? How can I help you? And no more judgment, more compassion and empathy.
Mm,
That is what I fill my heart with love.
mm,
I come from love.
mm.
That is what made the difference and freed my mom, freed my dad, and freed my sisters because we were in bondage. We
Right.
were not getting along. I told you, fist fighting. We were not getting along. Yeah. So I work now. I went through phases, right? First, I got my formal education. Then I did personal development. And now I'm working on my spiritual development. But working in my personal development to begin with, that was really the beginning of all the success that you see now
Right.
was personal development. I did go to school. I became a psychologist, but becoming a psychologist, getting an education doesn't teach you how to live the life of your dreams.
Right.
Right. And so for me, what taught me how to live the life of my dreams is personal development.
Mhm.
I continue to evolve that. And not just now, I don't just want to live the life of my dreams. I want you to live the life of your dreams. I want others to have the life of their dreams. I want the world to transform and everybody gets a dream come true. Like, I want to be like Oprah, right? Like, you get a dream come true and you get your dream.
You're
That's
getting
what I
there.
want for everybody.
Wow, so powerful. I love this word compassion. I love it. And I love it more than even just the word forgiveness because I feel like compassion really helps us almost to see the full perspective of what's truly going on. And I know something that you mentioned several times also in your book is just this reminder that whatever we actually want, whatever we want, or whatever we're not receiving in life, it's because we are responsible for it. We're responsible for what we are putting in. And we ultimately get back whatever it is that we are putting in. And so, what a great way to look at that. And especially when we start to unravel this story that we have, and I think you refer to it as the sob story. So, we start to unravel the sob story and start to realize that the things that we are missing in our lives are really the things that we are not putting in. And so, where did this aha moment come in for you?
I always thought that I had the worst story from anybody. Your dad's a heroin addict, your mom killed somebody, you're a high school dropout, and my self-esteem was really low. I really thought I'm not successful because of my parents.
Mm,
And anytime you say you're not what you want because of something else,
right.
that is a sob story.
Mm,
Even if it is, I can't lose weight because I'm big bone.
mhm,
Like that is a sob story. My family is has big bodies, right? That is a sob story. You could lose weight, right? As Rosalia said, when we were at her house about women's hormones, like that's we say that we are gaining weight because of that, but we could do something else, right, to curtail that weight gain.
right.
Anyhow, I did through personal development, I did learn that by a true example that somebody else had a sob story worse than mine. I
Mm,
went to a personal development seminar. We're all sitting there, and the trainers telling us how we add meaning to everything. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. All these people that are going up there are adding meaning. Everybody does that, but I really do have a bad story. All
mm,
these people that went up to the microphone, their story is not that bad. Mine is the worst story. And then somebody goes up to the microphone and says that her dad was killed at a family party while she was sitting on his lap playing. She was 4 years old, and that he was shot in the head, and all his blood, it's splattered all over her. And in that moment, I said, now that's a worse story than mine. And like, I never from that moment forward could ever use that as a sob story. I could never use that story as a reason why I can't have my dreams come true, as a reason why I can't move forward and achieve more. And I became a presence did to me, like, oh, this is just a sob story. It got real. It got real. And once you have an epiphany
mhm.
and you see something in a different way, you don't go back to seeing it the same way. So in that moment, it busted my myth, and I was done with sob stories. You'll never hear me say that I'm some way because of another way.
Right.
And that is my biggest goal, is to be whatever I want and do whatever I want because I want to be what I want and because I want to do what I want, not because of something else,
Right.
you know?
Right. Yeah, that's so powerful. And I think that comes from just taking responsibility and ownership for all the things that happened to you, which is really hard because I didn't choose this for myself, but I'm still going to take the responsibility and the ownership that I am experiencing this because I choose to experience this, and this is the perspective that I chose to have from this thing that happened to me, and I've decided that this happened to me and not for me. And so I always feel that the moment we decide that we're going to stop blaming others for our circumstance or what we have or don't have in our life, we stop criticizing everything around us, we stop complaining about everything, and just take action through a very clear vision and through a supportive environment, we can start to see changes. And what's so interesting, again, just seeing and hearing a story such as yours and success stories, is that it doesn't happen overnight. And I'm Hazel right now on this rampage. I'm like on this obsession with just learning people's success stories. So I watched the Arnold documentary on Netflix.
Well, I
Then
love
there's,
that one.
oh, so good. And then there's the McGregor one. So I'm reading everybody's just life stories. And what's so interesting is there is a pattern. There is a pattern, and everybody had a story, exactly to your point. This sob story, something terrible that happens, something hard in the upbringing. And that's the thing, is that we can't control that part. But what is so interesting is every single person also had a vision, and then they had this ultimate knowing and faith that they can overcome, that they're meant for something greater. And I think just the way that you described it earlier, winning awards already as a kid, that's already the ultimate, I think, indication that there was amazing things coming for you. So what would you say to somebody who's really stuck in that story, that could help them maybe start to unravel their destiny in a way where they could start to manifest things that they actually want to create and live and experience in their life?
Yeah, well, Sherry, first of all, we're always manifesting,
Right.
right? Everything that we are saying, it gets created, but we're not conscious of what we're saying. We're talking all the time and we're not very intentional. So I would say, watch your self-talk.
Mm-hmm.
If you say that you have a lot of bills, you are going to create having more bills. If you say you don't have any money, you're going to continue to not have any money. I tell people to imagine that there's a waiter standing right next to you at all times, taking your order. Everything that you're saying, they're ordering it up for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so if you're saying, I'm so dumb, I'm so out of shape, I'm tired, I'm not happy, I'm mad, whatever you're saying, anything that comes after I am has to be, right? And so you get more of that. So stop that and replace that with the opposite of that. So right now I have a house guest and he's practicing. And he actually fell and he fainted and he woke up and had a broken foot. And he walks around our house in pain. And he says, what a blessing. What a blessing.
Wow.
So we have to be mindful and catch ourselves. That's the first thing, is to catch ourselves, self-talk. So even complaining, you cannot have your dreams come true if complaining is in your space.
Mm.
So start with a 24-hour no complaining challenge. If that works out, extend it to 48 hours and get a few friends to come into the challenge where you don't complain for 48 hours and see what shows up. Whenever we want something, everybody wants us to have it. We're the ones that get in our own way,
Yes.
right? Nobody tells you, oh, you can't have that. Hopefully nobody does. And if you do, don't get that person in your circle anymore. Change your pond.
Right.
But be with people that are cheering you on and believe that you can do anything that you say. The only one that really says we can't is us. We're the ones that say we can't. We're the ones that thwart our dreams by our words. And our brain is the one of the most important organs that we have. It's a gift from God. And if we know how to work it, It can help us to manifest and magnetize anything that we want. And that is what's happened in my life is I learned how to change my self-talk.
Mm,
And I only speak from what I want,
right.
right? And so I want my daughter and I to be happy and enjoy each other's company. So I say, I'm really enjoying your company. You
Mm,
know, even in a tough situation, like I love you. And I want to tell you that every time I see you, I'm in full joy. You know, in spite of that at dinner, she was not happy with me.
mm,
You know how mother-daughter situations are.
mhm,
I also created, my daughter told me she didn't want to have children.
mm,
And I wasn't shocked, like, what? I want to be a grandmother. In my life, I have grandchildren, you know, in my vision of my future, I have grandchildren. And I created and I envisioned my life 10 years from now, and I had two grandchildren. And I told her that, and I told her how it would be as a grandmother and how I would take care of those grandchildren. And my daughter would trust me, and that I travel a lot. So I told her that I would be home to take care of these grandchildren, and I would, you know, that she would be so comfortable with me that she would leave the kids with me and travel and love me.
wow.
Anyhow, she told me, you make me want to have children.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah, so we're always creating. So now I get to have grandchildren.
All right, good work.
So speak what you want.
Right.
Yeah, you know, you can't have a dream come true if you don't have a dream. So be creating a dream. That's what I would tell people.
Yeah. Oh, so good. I love, love, love that. And it's so interesting because generally when someone asks us, what do you want? We're very quick to reply what we don't want, right? Or in our world, we're very quick to point out, this is what I don't want, this is what's going bad, this is what I hate, this is what I want to change. But we're never focusing on what it is that we want to create. And to your point, the more I focus on these things that I don't like, that I don't have, the more I'm going to get that. How can I create what I want if I never talk about it, if I never think about it? All I am doing is just getting stuck in that story that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. And, you know, one of the most pivotal moments in my life was when I was prompted to create my life 5 years from now.
Mm.
And to your listeners, I am going to give a free vision exercise,
Okay.
which is the precise exercise that I did that changed my life and opened me up to having my dream life come true. Is that they asked me, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I was stunned by the question. I've never been forward thinking. As I said, I was living Groundhog Day. And they asked me, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I said, I'd be 5 years older. Like there wouldn't be any reason why my life would look any different. Yes, I was a psychologist, but I was working for a school district, and they give you a cost of living increases, but the cost of living increases too. So it was basically going to break even. So I couldn't see why my life would look any different. The coach said, well, think about it. You answered really quickly. And she stepped out of the room and said, I'll be back in 10 minutes. I was sitting there for 8 minutes, not knowing what to say to her when she got back. And I was very frustrated with this nonsense question. When all of a sudden I got this like a channel that, you know, if you believe in God and you believe in miracles, what is possible for you? And I thought, well, if it's not up to me and it's up to God and it's up to miracles, then anything is possible. It's not possible for Hazel to have anything better or different than what she has right now. But with God, if God's going to make this happen or a miracle, then there is. And I created that I lived in a pimp daddy mansion, the
Yeah.
kind where music videos are filmed. I created that I was flying in private jets, that I had a life that looked like I was always on vacation. I I said I wanted to have $3 million or more in my bank account. And I wanted to find the love of my life. And I also wanted to get along with my sisters like we were in heaven. So
Mm.
now I created all of that, and my brain saw all of the details. I drew everything. The lady came back from being away for 10 minutes. And when I was about to answer her what I came up with, she told me to draw it. So I drew it. And today that drawing is framed and in my dining room because I'm living in the house that I drew. My pimp daddy mansion, the kind where music videos are filmed. Yes, and music videos are filmed here and movies. So you get what you ask for and even more. So that would be one of the strongest tools. I would say people need to know what are their greatest aspirations. What do you want? What do you want in the area of the relationships with your kids?
Right.
How do you want that to be? If there was a miracle, because we could say, oh, my kids are teenagers, they're difficult. I can't have a good relationship with them right now. We're very reasonable. There's a lot of reasons why we can't get along with people. But if we forget about all the reasons and we become unreasonable and we expect a miracle in that life, what would that look like? Well, for me, I said with my sisters, it would look like we were in heaven.
Mm.
And I created that. And right now, my life, everything happened, and not in 5 years, but in 2 years, without investing $1 and without going back to school and getting another degree or another certificate. Yeah. And so today I have everything, my life. I just got back from Brazil and Argentina, and I'm leaving tonight to Cape Cod. And I have many more trips coming up for the rest of the year, including Necker Island.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm super excited about that. So creating a vision for what you want. So when somebody asks you, where do you see yourself? You have an answer.
Right.
Especially, when you're dating,
Mm.
you go on a date and people are like, it's like a job interview, right? What do you want? And then if you don't know what you want, you're sending anything, you'll accept anything.
Right.
But if you know what you want, I want a man that I can pour love into and receive love and want to travel the world with him. I need somebody adventurous. Then that person would know if they're that person or not.
Right.
They wouldn't waste your time. But if you also say something like, I love being home and snuggling and staying in bed on Sundays, and they like that too, then they could stick around. You know what I mean? Like, you want to be saying what you want. You want to know what you want. It's
Yeah.
really important.
Yeah, so powerful. I love that. And I'm sure people are listening and they're probably thinking, well, she's so lucky. She's got the mansion and she's got the guy and everything's good in her life. And I'm just super curious, Hazel. Is this a daily thing that you work on, or is it a one and done thing?
I work on it all the time, all the time. So in my relationship, I have an amazing relationship. People have told me that they want relationship like mine. And I always tell people, anybody can do what I did. Just have the life that I have by doing what I have done. So I read books about how to be happy and in my internally, how to be happy, and then that shows up in my relationships. I recommend a book called The Mastery of Love
Mm.
by Don Miguel Ruiz. He wrote the Four Agreements. The mastery of love is about loving yourself, right? A lot of times when we don't have good relationships is because we're being triggered from not feeling enough, not feeling like we're valued, but that stuff it's not supposed to come from the outside. It's an inside job. So I work on myself harder than I do on anything else. I've done a lot of personal development currently. Like I said, I'm in spiritual development. I go to meditation retreats. I wake up in the morning. I get on my vibration bed for 20 minutes. And then I sit in front of an infrared panel. That's why I look 20 years younger.
I was gonna say, woman, damn.
Yes. And so I work towards the things that I say that I want. I do trust that God is going to provide. And I also think that God wants you to work on it yourself too. So I always say to people, like, create your vision and do one little thing that doesn't cost you a dime towards each item that you say is important to you. So for myself, when I wanted a pimp daddy mansion, I couldn't afford it. Remember, I was bouncing checks. But what's one little thing that I could do is that I could go look at them,
Mm.
right? That's free, doesn't cost me a dime. I went to an open house. I knew I couldn't afford it. I came into the house and then I was like, okay, how can I afford this? I want this, And then I started to improve my credit score. I started to work on how to save money. I started to learn about money. And that is some of the things that I say, like, do something towards each area. With my sisters, again, I learned about relationships and I started talking to them about what I wanted for us in that relationship and with my kids. It all transformed.
So good. I want to ask you like 700 more questions because I'm just so loving this conversation. But I think I'm going to ask you one more. And that's around your relationship and especially why you have such a powerful relationship. What is the level of work that you have to invest in your relationship for it to be as fruitful as it is?
I don't really work on my relationship. I work on myself. Again, emotional, quotient, right? EQ.
Right.
So like we're all human and there's parts of us that are not that cute sometimes, right? So I have a partner that is human and I choose to overlook the things I don't like and I focus on the things I do like, right? So when something comes up, he's behaving, let's just say he's spending too much money and I don't agree with that. I focus on what I do like versus what I don't like. Because if you focus on what you don't like becomes the center of everything. So I focus on, or what do I like about that? Okay, he's spending money. I don't approve of that, but he is buying me something,
Right.
or he's buying something for the house.
Right.
Today he's buying a Stairmaster, so um, sometimes I think like you're spending too much money in the gym, but then I'm like, but what do I like about that is that I know that he's doing that for us, for both of us to enjoy. So I don't want to say it's working hard, although it is every day you work on it, but every day is like make love every day, and I don't mean sexually. I mean, having compassion also and empathy for them. They have feelings too. It's not just what we want. What do they want? Where are their dreams? I support his dreams. I honor him. And he really is happy about that. He tells me all the time that the fact that I support his dreams is a very big deal for him. So I know that he feels supported in that way, and that makes it easier. He's in appreciation mode. I always appreciate him too. I'm in appreciation mode all the time. That helps a lot. All your relationships, if you would just be in gratitude about everything, you would have a life that's unrecognizable.
So powerful. I love this conversation so much, Hazel. I love you so much, and I appreciate your time here today. What a pleasure and what a gift for anyone who's listening today, and definitely must go get that book. It was very, very life changing for me. And what's amazing about it is it applies to any area of your life, and the principles are so solid and so simple, and just beautiful to see again that trajectory of somebody who's overcome massive, massive obstacles and struggles, rewrote their story, and lived life on their term. And it's definitely something that we can all do. So before we sign off, is there anything else that you wanted to add or share that you didn't have a chance to do yet?
Yes, my great sign off is this. As I've shared my story, I mentioned pushy angels. My call to action is that anybody listening to this podcast, watching, go back to your environment, to your jobs, to your businesses, wherever you spend time, and spot somebody that might need a pushy angel in their lives. It might be a coworker, right? It might be a kid, somebody else's kid. Become a mentor, become a pushy angel for somebody else. We made it. Now let's help somebody else make it too, right? And anybody can be a mentor. Anybody at any moment can be a pushy angel. And if we do that, then we'd be creating an army of pushy angels and we can really shift the world.
So good. So good. I love that. So if somebody wanted to download or grab that 5-year vision tool that you have generously provided for us, where can they go to do that?
You can go to my website. It is themasteryofmiracles.com. There's another website, similar name, but you have to say themasteryofmiracles.com. You'll get a free 4-minute vision guide asking you questions about your future. It also includes worksheets that you can print and fill out. And then after you do that, draw everything. Okay. And then people write to me all the time telling me that they're manifesting things from that exercise, from being engaged within hours of doing the exercise. They said they wanted to be married and they were proposed to. within hours of drawing this. Okay. And the girl drew her engagement ring on the drawing. Okay. And just a few hours later, her boyfriend proposed to her. So somebody just told me right now that I spoke to an organization of real estate agents, and one said that she created that she was going to become a real estate investor and buy properties all around the US. And she thought it was like a long-term game. And in a matter of a few weeks, she already bought her first investment property. So
Incredible.
people are writing to me all the time on Instagram, do this thing and let me know what you manifest, including you, Sherry. Okay. I
All
want you
right.
to do it.
Done and done. Thank you so much, Hazel. I love this conversation.
Thank you. This is so good that you're doing this. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you.